"My body is too small. I can't bear children," whispered the tiny Apache woman. But he held her. From the time she was born, everyone could see that she was different. The tiny Apache woman came into the world smaller than most babies. The elders said she was delicate, and the family worried about her strength. Her mother held her close, afraid that even the wind might be too strong for such a small child. But even as a baby, she showed a quiet will to live. Her tiny hands held tightly to her mother's finger, as if she was saying she was here to stay. As she grew, her size became more noticeable. Other children in the village grew taller and stronger, but she remained small. Some people looked at her with kindness, while others looked at her with doubt. They wondered how she would manage the hard work of daily life. In a community where strength and endurance were valued, being small often meant being underestimated. She heard whispers, not always cruel, but heavy enough to make her feel different. At school, she tried her best to keep up. She walked longer distances to reach class. She carried books that felt too heavy for her thin arms. Sometimes she had to stop and rest while other children kept walking. A few children teased her, calling her tiny and weak. Their words hurt, even when she tried to pretend they didn't. She learned early to smile on the outside, while carrying quiet sadness on the inside. But she was not weak in her heart. Even if her body was small, her spirit was strong. She paid close attention to everything around her. She listened to the stories of her grandparents. They told her about their ancestors, their struggles, and their courage. These stories became her strength. She told herself that being strong did not only mean having big muscles, it also meant having patience, kindness, and the ability to keep going when life felt heavy. At home, she helped in any way she could. She swept the floors, washed dishes, and helped prepare food. Some tasks took her longer, but she never gave up. Her mother sometimes tried to stop her, afraid she would get too tired, but she insisted. She wanted to prove that she was useful, that she mattered, that she was not just the small one who needed protection all the time. Every small task she completed made her feel proud. As she became a teenager, her differences felt even more clear. Other girls talked about their futures, about marriage, about having children one day. They spoke with excitement and confidence. She listened quietly, smiling. But inside, fear slowly grew. She wondered if her small body would ever be able to handle the demands of adult life. She had heard older women talk about how hard pregnancy and childbirth could be, even for strong, healthy women. The thought made her heart feel heavy. She did not talk about these fears. In her culture, some worries were kept private. She believed that speaking them out loud might make them more real. So she carried them silently. At night, when everyone was asleep, she sometimes lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She imagined her future and felt unsure. Would someone ever want to marry her? Would she be seen as a burden? Would she disappoint her family? These questions stayed with her like quiet shadows. Even with these fears, she tried to live a normal life. She laughed with friends, helped neighbors, and took part in community gatherings. She dressed neatly and took care of herself. She wanted to be seen as more than just her size. When people praised her for being kind or hardworking, it made her feel a little stronger. Those moments reminded her that she had value beyond what people could see. Still, there were moments when reality felt too heavy. Sometimes adults spoke around her, not to her. They talked about her future as if she was not there. They said things like, "She will need a gentle life," or "She must be careful." Even though their words were not meant to be unkind, they made her feel small in a different way, not just in body, but in how others saw her place in the world. Her father tried to encourage her. He told her that everyone is given a different path in life. He said that being small did not mean being less. He reminded her that many great people were not physically strong, but changed lives through wisdom and courage. His words helped, but they did not erase her worries completely. Deep down, she still feared what the future might bring. As years passed, she became known in the community as someone gentle and dependable. People trusted her with children, with elders, and with small responsibilities. She became someone others could talk to. She listened carefully when people shared their problems. Because she knew what it felt like to be worried and unsure, she showed deep understanding to others. This made people feel comfortable around her. Slowly, she built a quiet respect that did not depend on her size. But when she was alone, her thoughts returned to the same place. She wondered if love would ever find her. She wondered if someone would look past her small frame and see her true self. She dreamed of being held, not because she was fragile, but because she was loved. She dreamed of a life where she would not always be defined by what she could not do, but by who she was. Sometimes she stood near the edge of the village and looked out at the open land. The wide sky made her feel both small and hopeful at the same time. She told herself that the world was big and maybe her place in it was still waiting for her. She did not know how or when, but she held on to a quiet belief that her story was not finished yet. Her life so far had taught her patience. It had taught her to accept help, even when she wanted to prove she could do everything alone. It had taught her that pain could be silent and strength could be quiet. She learned to smile even when her heart felt unsure. She learned to stand tall in her own way, even if she could not stand tall in height. By the time she became a young woman, she had built a protective wall around her deepest fears. To the world, she appeared calm and kind. Few people knew how much she worried about her future as a wife, as a possible mother, and as a woman in a world that often measured worth in physical terms. She carried these worries like stones in her pocket, small but heavy enough to be felt every day. Yet, even with all of this, she did not lose hope completely. Somewhere deep inside, she believed that someone, someday, might see her differently. Not as a problem to solve, not as a fragile person to protect, but as a partner to walk beside. She did not know his face. She did not know his name, but she believed that her life had more chapters ahead. This was the life she lived before love entered her story. A life shaped by being different, by being underestimated, and by learning to find strength in quiet ways. A life where her small body often spoke louder to others than her big heart, and yet a life that prepared her for the moment when someone would finally see her not as too small, but as someone worthy of deep love, respect, and a future built together. Whenever you're ready, I can now expand part 2 in the same long, engaging style. Life continued in its usual slow rhythm, but something quietly began to change for her. It did not happen in a dramatic way. There was no sudden moment that told her her life was about to turn in a new direction. It started with small, ordinary days, the kind that often pass without notice. Yet, those small moments slowly led her toward a person who would become very important in her life. She first noticed him during a community gathering. He was not loud or showy. He did not try to draw attention to himself. Instead, he helped set up chairs, carried supplies, and spoke kindly to everyone he met. She saw the way he greeted elders with respect and how he smiled at children who ran past him. There was something calm and steady about him. It made people feel comfortable around him. At first, she only saw him from a distance. She told herself not to think too much about it. She had learned to protect her heart by keeping her expectations low. Still, she found her eyes looking for him whenever there was another gathering or shared work. She noticed small things, like how he listened more than he spoke, and how he always finished a task before resting. These details stayed in her mind longer than she expected. One day, they were asked to work together on a simple project for the community. They had to organize supplies and prepare food for an event. She felt nervous standing beside him. Her hands shook slightly as she worked, afraid he might notice how small and unsure she felt next to him. But he treated her like any other person. He spoke to her in a normal, friendly way, asking her opinion and thanking her for her help. That simple respect meant more to her than he could ever know. As they worked, they talked. At first, it was about small things, weather, daily life, and simple plans. Slowly, the conversation became easier. She found herself laughing at his quiet jokes. He listened carefully when she spoke, not interrupting, not rushing her. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly heard. This made her feel both happy and scared. Happy, because it felt good to be seen. Scared, because getting close to someone meant opening her heart to possible pain. After that day, they began to see each other more often. Sometimes it was planned. Sometimes it was by chance. Each meeting felt natural, not forced. He never made her feel rushed or uncomfortable. He never looked at her with pity. Instead, he treated her with the same respect he showed to everyone else. This slowly broke down the walls she had built around herself. She started to look forward to their conversations. She noticed how he remembered small details about her life. He asked about her family. He asked about her work. He asked how she was feeling. These simple questions made her feel important. No one had ever taken such steady interest in her thoughts and feelings before. It made her wonder what he saw in her. Inside her heart, a quiet hope began to grow. She tried to push it away. She reminded herself of her fears. She reminded herself of all the reasons why love might not be simple for her. But hope is not easy to silence. Every kind word, every gentle smile made that hope a little stronger. At night, she sometimes thought about him before falling asleep. She imagined what it would be like to walk beside him, to share her days with him, to not feel alone in her worries. These thoughts both comforted and troubled her. She did not want to dream too much and then be hurt. Yet she could not stop her heart from feeling what it felt. He, too, seemed to grow more comfortable around her. He began to look for her at gatherings. He saved her a seat. He walked beside her when they left events. These small actions spoke louder than big promises. They showed care without pressure. They showed interest without demands. This made her trust him more with each passing day. Still, there was a part of her that stayed guarded. She knew that getting closer meant that one day she would have to share her deepest fear. The thought of that moment made her chest feel tight. She wondered how he would react. Would he pull away? Would he see her differently? Would he think of her as less of a woman? These questions stayed in her mind, even during her happiest moments with him. Sometimes she caught herself studying his face, trying to read his thoughts. She tried to see if there were signs of disappointment or doubt, but she mostly saw kindness. She saw patience. She saw a man who seemed to value people for who they were, not just for what they could offer. This gave her a small sense of safety, though not complete. Their friendship slowly began to feel like something more. The way he spoke to her was softer. The way he looked at her was warmer. Others in the community began to notice. A few people smiled knowingly when they saw them together. This made her shy, but also secretly happy. It made her feel like maybe she was not invisible after all. She did not rush into anything. She had learned from life that slow steps were safer steps. She wanted to be sure. She wanted to protect both her heart and his, yet she could not deny that she cared about him. The idea of a future without him began to feel a little emptier. One evening, as they walked together after helping at an event, there was a comfortable silence between them. The sky was changing colors as the sun went down. She felt a strange mix of peace and nervousness. In that quiet moment, she realized that her life was no longer just her own. Someone else had started to matter deeply to her. She knew that love was entering her life, even if she had not said the word out loud. It came gently, not loudly. It came through shared work, shared laughter, and shared quiet moments. It came in a way that respected her pace and her fears. Even so, her biggest worry remained hidden in her heart. She enjoyed being close to him, but she knew that honesty would one day be necessary. For now, she allowed herself to feel happy in small ways. She allowed herself to believe, just a little, that maybe she deserved this kindness, this attention, this growing love. Her heart stood between hope and fear. Hope told her that she had finally found someone who saw her for who she truly was. Fear told her that this happiness might not last once the truth was spoken. She walked this path carefully, holding both feelings at the same time. This was the stage of her life where love began to grow quietly, a time of gentle connection, unspoken feelings, and a heart learning to open after years of guarding itself. A time when she started to believe that her story might be changing, even if she did not yet know how hard the next steps would be. As their bond grew stronger, her heart began to feel heavier at the same time. The closer she felt to him, the more she realized that she could not hide her deepest fear forever. Every smile, every shared moment, made her both happier and more worried. She knew that honesty was important, but she was afraid of what honesty might cost her. There were many moments when she almost spoke. The words would rise in her throat, and then she would swallow them back. She would tell herself, "Not today. Maybe another time." She did not want to spoil a good moment with a painful truth. She wanted to hold on to happiness just a little longer. But each delay made the truth feel heavier inside her chest. At night, her thoughts became louder. She lay awake, listening to the quiet sounds around her, and her mind replayed imagined conversations. She pictured telling him everything. In some versions, he stayed calm and understanding. In others, he looked disappointed and distant. These imagined reactions scared her. They made her heart beat faster and her hands feel cold even though she was safe in her own bed. She began to notice how often people around her talked about families and children. These conversations, which once felt distant, now felt personal. Every mention made her feel like time was moving forward, pushing her closer to a moment she could not avoid. She wondered if he had expectations that she could not meet. The thought of being the reason for his sadness hurt her deeply. One afternoon, they were sitting together in a quiet place away from others. The air felt calm, and the moment felt safe. She almost took this as a sign. Her heart told her that if she was ever going to speak, this was the time. Her hands trembled slightly as she tried to find the right words. Her mouth felt dry. She started by talking about her childhood, about always being smaller, about how people treated her differently. He listened closely, his face showing care and concern. His attention gave her a little courage. She went on to explain how being small had affected her confidence and how it had shaped her fears about the future. Each word felt like a small step across a shaky bridge. Then came the hardest part. Her voice became softer. She looked down, afraid to meet his eyes. She told him that she worried about her body and what it might mean for her future as a wife and possible mother. She did not use many strong words. She spoke quietly, almost like she was afraid the truth might break if she said it too loudly. For a moment there was silence. That silence felt longer than it really was. In her mind, it stretched into something huge and frightening. Her heart beat so loudly that she felt he must be able to hear it. She waited for his reaction, holding her breath, preparing herself for pain. In that silence, she felt completely exposed. This was not just about her body. It was about her worth, her dreams, and her fear of being left behind. Tears filled her eyes, not because he had said anything wrong, but because the weight she had carried for so long was finally out in the open. She whispered that she had always been afraid that her body was too small and that she might not be able to bear children. Saying those words out loud made them feel more real than ever before. It also made her feel weak and strong at the same time. Weak because she was afraid. Strong because she finally had the courage to speak. She expected questions. She expected doubt. She expected him to pull away, even just a little. Instead, he stayed quiet, letting her finish. He did not interrupt her. He did not rush to respond. This waiting made her even more nervous. She could not tell what he was thinking, and that uncertainty was almost as painful as a negative answer. Her hands shook as she wiped her eyes. She told him that she would understand if this changed how he felt. She said that she did not want to be a burden in anyone's life. She explained that she had carried this fear for years, and that it had shaped how she saw herself. Each sentence felt like she was placing her heart in his hands. The emotional weight of the moment made her feel tired. She had spent so long protecting this part of herself that letting it out felt like opening a door she had kept locked for a lifetime. She felt small again, not in body but in how vulnerable she was. She thought about all the times she had been treated differently because of her size. She thought about the whispers, the careful looks, the quiet worries of her family. All of those memories came rushing back in this one moment. They stood behind her words, even if she did not say them out loud. As she waited for his response, her mind raced. She imagined her life without him. She imagined returning to her old pattern of keeping her heart guarded. She imagined telling herself that love was not meant for her. These thoughts hurt, but they also felt familiar, like an old pain she already knew how to carry. She did not want to cry in front of him, but tears came anyway. Not loud tears, but quiet ones that slipped down her face. She felt embarrassed, but she could not stop them. They were the result of years of fear, worry, and silent struggle. In that moment, she was not just a woman sharing a concern. She was a child who had grown up feeling different. She was a young girl who had been underestimated. She was a young woman who wanted love, but feared she did not fully deserve it. All of those versions of herself stood together in that quiet space. She finally looked up at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of rejection. She was ready for anything, even if it meant heartbreak. Her heart felt like it was standing at the edge of something unknown. This was the moment she had feared for so long. The moment when truth met love. The moment when her future could change in ways she could not control. She had done her part by being honest. Now, everything rested on how he would respond. The air felt heavy with emotion, but also strangely clear. For the first time, she was no longer hiding this part of herself. No matter what happened next, she knew that she had been brave. She had faced her biggest fear and spoken it out loud. This was the turning point of her story. A moment of deep honesty, deep vulnerability, and deep courage. A moment that would test their bond and reveal what their connection truly meant. The silence after her confession felt heavy, but it did not last forever. He took a slow breath, as if he was carefully choosing his words. She could see that he was thinking, not in a cold way, but in a thoughtful and caring way. That alone gave her a small sense of comfort. He did not look angry. He did not look disappointed. He looked serious, but gentle. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. When his hand touched hers, it was warm and steady. That simple touch made her feel a little less alone. She had spent so many years carrying her fears by herself that sharing them felt strange. His touch reminded her that she no longer had to face everything on her own. He told her that he was grateful for her honesty. He said it must have taken a lot of courage to share something so personal. Hearing that made her feel seen. For so long she had felt like her worries were invisible. Now, someone was recognizing her strength instead of only her fear. Then he said something that surprised her. He told her that he did not fall for her because of what her body could or could not do. He said he cared about her because of her kindness, her patience, and the way she treated people. He reminded her of all the small ways she made life better for those around her. As he spoke, she felt tears in her eyes again. At this time, they were mixed with relief. She had expected him to focus on the problem. Instead, he focused on her. This made her feel like a weight was being slowly lifted from her heart. For the first time, she felt that maybe she did not have to prove her worth through things she could not control. He told her that life was full of unknowns for everyone. He said that no one could fully promise how the future would turn out. But he also said that love was about walking together through those unknowns, not running away from them. These words stayed with her. They sounded simple, but they carried deep meaning. As he spoke, his voice remained calm and steady. He did not rush. He did not make big, dramatic promises. Instead, he spoke with honesty and care. He told her that what mattered to him was building a life based on trust, respect, and support. He said that children were one part of life, but they were not the only measure of a meaningful relationship. These words touched a part of her heart that had been closed for a long time. She had grown up thinking that her value would always be tied to what she could physically give. Hearing him say that her value came from who she was made her feel lighter inside. It was a new way of seeing herself, and it felt both comforting and unfamiliar. He gently pulled her closer, not in a way that felt rushed or demanding, but in a way that felt safe. She rested her head near his shoulder, and for a moment she allowed herself to simply breathe. The tight feeling in her chest began to ease. The world did not feel so heavy in that moment. In his arms, she felt something she had rarely felt before: acceptance. Not the kind that comes with conditions, but the kind that says, "You are enough as you are." That feeling was powerful. It made her realize how much she had been judging herself through the eyes of others, instead of through her own worth. He told her that he wanted to build a future with her, not with an idea of who she should be, but with who she truly was. He said that whatever challenges came, they would face them together. These words were not loud or dramatic, but they were strong. They came from a place of commitment, not fantasy. She listened carefully, letting his words sink in. Part of her still feared that things could change in the future. She knew that life was not always simple, but another part of her felt something new growing inside her. Trust, not blind trust, but a careful, hopeful trust that allowed her to believe in their bond. She shared how much his response meant to her. She told him that she had spent her life preparing for rejection. She told him that she had always believed that her fears would push people away. Hearing her own words out loud made her realize how deeply those beliefs had shaped her. He listened, nodding gently, not trying to fix everything, but trying to understand. That made her feel respected. She did not need someone to solve her problems. She needed someone to stand beside her while she faced them. In that moment, she felt that he was doing exactly that. They talked for a long time. They shared thoughts about life, about hopes, and about worries. The conversation was not perfect or easy, but it was honest. It brought them closer, not because everything was solved, but because everything was shared. As the time passed, she noticed that her fear was no longer the strongest feeling in her heart. It was still there, but it was softer. In its place, something warmer began to grow. She felt supported. She felt valued. She felt like she did not have to hide anymore. She realized that love was not just about happy moments. It was also about how someone responded in hard moments. His response showed her that their connection was deeper than she had hoped. It was not based on ideal situations. It was based on real life with real challenges. In that embrace and in those gentle words, she felt a turning point inside herself. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future that was not controlled by fear, a future where she was not defined by what she worried about, but by the love and support she shared. She still did not know exactly what the future would bring. There were still questions without answers. But now, those questions did not feel like walls. They felt like paths that could be walked together. That made all the difference. This moment became a quiet promise between them. Not a promise that life would be easy, but a promise that they would face life side by side. For her, that was more powerful than any perfect plan. It was the kind of promise that gave her strength in a way she had never known before. In his acceptance, she found a new way to accept herself. She began to see that her worth was not something that could be taken away by fear or uncertainty. It lived in her heart, in her kindness, and in her courage to be honest. This was not the end of her worries, but it was the beginning of her healing, a healing that came from being seen, being heard, and being loved for who she truly was. After that honest and emotional moment, life did not suddenly become perfect, but it did become clearer. The fear that once controlled her thoughts no longer held the same power. It was still there, quietly sitting in her heart, but it was no longer the strongest voice. Now love, support, and understanding spoke louder. She noticed small changes in herself. She smiled more easily. She slept more peacefully. The heavy feeling that once followed her everywhere began to lift. She felt lighter, not because her problems had disappeared, but because she was no longer carrying them alone. Having someone who truly understood her made everyday life feel more hopeful. They continued to spend time together, just as before, but something was different. Their conversations felt deeper. Their silence felt more comfortable. She no longer felt the need to hide her worries. If a fear came into her mind, she shared it. He listened, just as he had before, with patience and care. This made her feel safe in a way she had never felt before.
I?
She also began to see herself through his eyes. When he looked at her, he did not see weakness. He saw strength. He saw a woman who had faced a lifetime of feeling different and had still chosen kindness. This new reflection helped her slowly change how she spoke to herself inside her own mind. Instead of saying, "I am not enough," she began to say, "I am doing my best, and that matters." They talked about the future in a gentle, realistic way. They did not make big promises or rush into big plans. They spoke about building a life based on love, respect, and shared values. They spoke about helping each other grow, no matter what life brought. These conversations helped her feel grounded. They made the future feel less scary and more like something they could face together. She also began to notice how her story could help others. When younger girls in the community felt unsure about themselves, she listened to them with deep understanding. She shared her own experiences, not in a dramatic way, but in an honest and caring way. She showed them that being different did not mean being broken. This made her feel like her struggles had meaning beyond her own life. Over time, her relationship with her family also grew stronger. She became more open with her parents and close relatives. She shared her feelings more freely. They, too, began to see her not just as the small one who needed protection, but as a woman who had her own strength and voice. This shift gave her a deeper sense of belonging. She realized that family was not only about tradition or expectations. It was also about understanding, support, and love. This new understanding changed how she looked at her own future. She stopped measuring her life only by what others expected. She began to measure it by how much peace, honesty, and love she felt in her heart. Her relationship with him continued to grow in a steady, healthy way. They faced small disagreements and misunderstandings, like any couple. But now, they had a strong base of trust. They knew how to talk, how to listen, and how to support each other. This made their bond stronger with each challenge they faced. She also learned to accept uncertainty. She understood that not everything in life could be planned or controlled. Instead of letting this thought scare her, she let it teach her. She learned to focus on what she could control: her actions, her kindness, her honesty, and her willingness to love. This gave her a sense of peace she had never known before. She no longer felt like her life was waiting to begin. She realized that her life was already happening. Every day she chose courage. Every day she chose honesty. Every day she chose love. She was building her future. This understanding made her feel powerful in a quiet way. Sometimes, she still remembered the young girl she once was, the girl who felt small, afraid, and unsure of her place in the world. She felt compassion for that younger version of herself. She wished she could go back and tell her that one day someone would see her clearly. She wished she could tell her that love would find her, not in a perfect way, but in a real and healing way. She also learned that her story was not only about love with another person, it was also about learning to love herself. For the first time, she began to treat herself with the same kindness she gave to others. She rested when she was tired. She spoke gently to herself when she made mistakes. She celebrated small wins that she once would have ignored. Her life became an example to others, even if she did not try to be one. People saw her confidence grow. They saw her smile more. They saw her stand a little taller, not in height, but in spirit. This quiet change showed that healing does not always come with loud moments. Sometimes it comes through steady love and daily courage. She and him continued to walk their path together. They did not pretend that life would always be easy, but they believed that together they could face whatever came. This belief gave them strength on difficult days and gratitude on good days. In time, she understood that family could be defined in many ways. It could be built through love, support, and shared life. It did not have to follow only one path. This understanding freed her from many of her old fears. It allowed her to see many possible futures, all of which could be meaningful. Her story became one of quiet victory, not a victory over her body, but a victory over the fear that once controlled her heart.